Good day. Oh, that light is terrible there. Hold on, let me rearrange myself so that light is not irritating to us. Maybe I'll just move my head. There we go. Look, now my head is not right. You know what, let me just take a quick turn here so I don't have those lights. How's everybody today? That's spectacular. It is minimally lovely to see Karen. I can't see any of the rest of you. It's definitely lovely to see you, Karen. Who else? Oh my goodness, there's a very bright light. There's
Oh,
Jessica.
no. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Spectacular. Look at everyone turning their cameras on because they just can't stand it. All right. Man, oh man. It's a good thing I don't work from home very often. Man, those lights are just not conducive to what I want. All right, there we go. How's that? Now we don't have those stupid lights there. All righty. Just let everybody in. Here we go. Okay. So good afternoon. Happy Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's lovely to see you. So today we've got 58 minutes or so to solve all of your challenges, answer all of your questions, talk about all your successes, regurgitate any brilliances from last week at Mega Camp, or cover whatever else it is you choose because it's your time. So anybody have something specific they want to make sure that we cover today? We need to review how Mastermind works. Maybe that might be beneficial.
Rick?
Yes, Christine, go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry, I might be in a bad zone. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to talk about getting listings this fall and getting as many as possible.
Yeah, I love that idea. And it's an awesome conversation. So let's start there, since that's where Christine brought us. What is it we're doing? All right, you know what? Karen and Jessica, I love the two of you. And I need to see some more people. So we're gonna just stop and guilt people into turning on their cameras. Ready?
So
Karen
mine's not, yeah, mine's not on just because I'm driving and you'll just see trees.
There we go.
And mine's not on because mine is not on because I'm in a store shopping.
Okay. So if you're not in a store in your car, there we go. There's Meredith. Thank you so much. And Nellie, that's spectacular. Now we're having a conversation. All righty. Seems like we should be able to guilt at least a couple of more people to turn on their cameras. Everybody whose camera is on, do this real quick. How come nobody did it? There we go. Thank you, Cal and Karen, for playing my game. That was to guilt others into turning their cameras on. See, we at least got Frank. We had one. There we go. All righty. So talking about getting listings for the fall, right? And so let's start with this conversation. Clearly, for those of you who've been paying attention at the 9 o'clock Zooms, you've been brilliant at obtaining listings in the last number of months, right? We've had 2 or 3 different challenges in the last 6 or 8 months for related to listings. And every single time you hit and exceeded the number that we set as a target, which was not a small number to begin with. We're moving forward into another challenge starting today for another 308 listings between now and November the 3rd. So all of that being said, where have those of you who have posted those listings, where have you found the listings so far this year? Because I think the best place to start in terms of a discussion about where you're finding listings in the next couple of weeks and months is to go back and figure out where they've come from in the last couple of weeks and months. So where have your success points been and how have you been obtaining those listings?
So Rick, I've had mine come from my sphere and social media. So I'm staying on the same course, but still need many more listings.
Yeah, agreed. And so I appreciate that, Christine. I'll repeat a conversation. I was talking with a client the other day who we were having this very same conversation, and I asked her the same question, and she said to me, mostly they've come from my database. And I said, okay, well, so what is your plan then for the fall? And she said, I'm doubling down on my database. I'm doubling down on the source that brought me most of my listings in the last couple of months. And I said, all right, well, that's awesome. What does that look like? Right. And so what we then outlined was a plan, a strategy, starting with a couple of events and moving forward with conversations through the database, a bit of a game, a referral game that we heard at Mega Camp, which I'll put on the table in a second. Right. So just because you have had success from certain sources doesn't necessarily mean that you need new sources. It may just mean that you need additional strategies to get better results from the same sources. Right.
Right.
So and the reality of your database is that's probably the main source of listings for most of you, right? If you're not getting listings from your database, recognize that in the United States, that is the #1 source of listings for most realtors, is their database. And so if they're not coming from your database, you need to be asking yourselves the question, okay, what am I doing differently or not doing with my database that other people are doing so that I'm not receiving those same results? And so what are the strategies that you're thinking of working with this fall? This is an open question in your database to drive listings. What are you doing? Well, that probably won't work.
Rick, sorry.
I plan. Sorry, I'm not on camera, Rick, but I plan on, well, I was out for a couple months, as you know, and I got a lot of gifts, a lot of cards, a lot of, welcome things. I plan on sending out, to begin with, a lot of thank you cards, handwritten, and speaking to everybody that has, been there for me. I plan on having get-togethers and live things since everybody is vaccinated now. So that's my plan.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing you say, Mara, is I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to be in communication and talk to people, right? And I think the follow-up there is, I said this yesterday for those of you who were on yesterday, Richard Shulman, who's a mega agent from, I think, California, he said to us a couple of years ago, he said, most of you, you're way too rigid about what you think an appointment is. What if you just relaxed about appointments? And we were all like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, we're from the Northeast, of course we're rigid. Like, what does that really mean? And he said, well, what I do is I schedule appointments by texting my database and asking if they want to have a cup of coffee or an adult beverage, right? Depending on which part of the day he's trying to fill. Although I guess you could do coffee and well, I guess you could do an adult beverage at 9 o'clock in the morning too. I'm not sure how the rest of your day will go if you choose that path, right? And if any of you have experience in that, that's a different mastermind. We'll talk about that some other time, right? But the idea of what if you just texted 10 people a day in your database and said, hey, just checking in, wanted to make sure you were okay, seeing how you were faring in this topsy-turvy crazy world that we live in. It'd be lovely if we could spend 15 minutes over a cup of coffee in the next week or so. Are you game? Is there anybody who can't do that? I mean, you type it one time and then just copy and paste it 9 other times and you send the text. She's not on the call, but I'll tell you that Debbie told me a story. Debbie Orr told me a story. She was driving back from Ohio last week, and what she said was she was the passenger and she didn't really feel like having conversations in the car when somebody else was in the car, right? A, it's rude, and B, she didn't want to be overheard. And so she said, you know what, I just took up my phone and I just texted 10 people. I'm not making this up. You can reach out to her. She'll confirm what I'm about to say. The results she got from those 10 texts, 10 random texts into her database, she got 6 responses, 5 text responses saying, yes, I'd love to have coffee, and 1 phone call response saying, yes, I'd love to have coffee. So that's a 60% at least return rate on the outbound. She set up, of those 6, 5 actual coffee appointments. 1 of them canceled because instead they said, you know what, let's not have coffee, just come over and list my house. So 10 texts, 6 responses, 5 coffee appointments, 1 listing, 1 come list me conversation. Like, I think sometimes we make it way harder than it needs to be, right? It's not as difficult as we think it is to find and then convert business. So there's one thought. What if you got through your entire database in the next 30 days by just texting them and asking them if they wanted to have a cup of coffee? You may have to choose decaf, by the way, because if a lot of people say yes, you're like going to be like a crazy person on caffeine. So choose decaf, and yet it certainly is a path forward. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I just want to say, I haven't been on a lot of these lately, but I'm glad I tuned in today because this is exactly what I've been thinking about lately. Like, I've been in the business now for a couple of years, and I remember you talking about what are your pillars of your business, and I still was trying to work that out in my own mind, like what are my pillars going to be? And I definitely decided recently that, like, I don't like cold calling. I don't like spending money on advertising. I'm born and raised in this town, and I know a ton of people. So I just got to talk to people. And when you put it that way, just send a text and that rate of return, I mean, that's great. That's like, it fits my style, and I'm just discovering what my, style and how I'm going to approach being a realtor is. And I just picked up a listing yesterday from somebody that, her mother and my mother grew up together. And I had her on a smart plan, and she finally hit me up, and I got the listing, and it was a piece of cake. And I just talked to her,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard, right? Your business will grow to the extent that the people in your database remember you, right? And how are they going to remember you? Well, talk to them. You just got to talk to people. People who succeed in this industry are people who communicate at a really high level over and over and over and over and over again, even when they don't feel like it, right? The more you communicate, the more people remember what it is you do and reach out to you when it is they feel like they themselves have an opportunity, or someone they know. One of the things, this sounds like a perfect opportunity to share this with you. One of the things that I heard at MegaCamp, which I just loved, let me find it. It was the idea of, how many of you have ever read this book? If the answer isn't all of you, probably the first thing I would say from this mastermind is go ahead and, Marissa, I love you, but I'm just going to press mute for a minute. Is go ahead and read this book. But what Gary talks about in this book, one of the things he talks about is building a bigger business, right? And he goes through the 7 levels of business growth. And so 7th level ultimately refers to a stage of business growth. And somebody at MegaCamp last week said, well, what if you looked at your referral opportunity in your database as like a 7th level gain? And I thought, okay, well, how would that work? And what they went on to explain is they look at opportunities in their database to say, okay, I'm communicating with these people in my database. So I'm communicating with Jim, Maria, and Stacy. Well, Stacy then refers a piece of business to me. So I communicated with Stacy. Maybe Stacy's a past client, right? And now she gave me another piece of business. So I've like attached a little chain to that link. Well, then what do you have to do with the person Stacy referred to you to make sure you get a referral from that person? And so maybe Stacy refers John, and now you add another link. And now you've got 3 links from your database person. You've got Stacy, you've got the person she referred, and the person she referred. And then what are you doing with that person to make sure that they refer you a piece of business? And the game is, can you get 7 chains, 7 levels deep in creating referral opportunities, even if you only focused on getting halfway down, getting 3 deep? Imagine that. Imagine the referrals you got in the past 12 months if you could have made sure that you got a referral from each and every one of those people that were referred to you. Right? For some of you, it would have doubled your business last year. For others of you, it would have increased your business by 20% or 25%. And what are the paths that you go down? What are the strategies you use to make sure that you're focused on creating referrals? I don't know. Well, start by giving awesome, brilliant service, right? Get the job done skillfully and in a reasonable amount of time. Ask for referrals from the minute you meet that person until the day after the closing, and then some. Right? I think that's one of the things that we don't do as often as we probably should, is talk to our current clientele about referrals. Guys, when are people thinking the most about real estate? When they're in a transaction, right? So that's when they're so in tune with what's going on. They know exactly which friends of theirs are also looking for a property, or which of their relatives might be relocating or whatnot, because they're in the real estate mindset. And so do you set those expectations up front and then check back in over the course of the transaction? My guess is that many of us do not do that. So I love the idea of building a chain of referrals from the people in your database, simply because it gives us a focal point, right? When Stacy says, hey, why don't you go work with John? It need not end there. I actually look at that as 2 opportunities. Stacy's already referred me a piece of business, so I'm going to reward her until she decides to reward me with another piece of business. And I'm going to start working John real hot and heavy, because he probably then has a sphere that he can refer a piece of business to. What are your thoughts on that? Kind of gamifying that referral idea and keeping it and bringing it deep. No one has any thoughts?
No, I have a thought.
Oh,
That
JD.
yes, that is the way I run my business. And I do see it as a game. And that's how I get my best referrals, is through word of mouth.
Right. And so when you make it your business to push for those referrals, right, you start thinking about how you talk to people and how often you talk to people and what you say to them differently. Because the goal is a referral. What if you went home this weekend or went home tonight and looked at your database and said, okay, I have 200 people in my database. I guarantee you that minimally 50% of those people knows someone who is looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. The question is, do they even know that they know people? Are they paying enough attention? And are they paying close enough attention and thinking about you at the same time? Do you see how that ultimately is our responsibility? You don't get to pass that off on them. Right? You can't look at your database and say, well, if they were better at referring, I'd be a busier realtor. You got to flip that around to say, okay, how can I communicate at a higher level? How can I engage people differently such that they consistently refer business to me? What kind of rewards are you giving your database, your raving fans? Are you loving on them hot and heavy? So what kind of things are you doing? Talk to me about what you're doing for the raving fans to make sure that you're encouraging referrals.
I recently had a client appreciation and referral appreciation party. It was only an hour and a half, but everybody stayed late. I had a mortgage person help me pay for it and a lawyer, and everybody had a great time.
I love that, Christine. Where did you have it?
At Milestones in Weston, Milestones Restaurant. And I had a signature drink and they served pizza. So it wasn't terribly expensive, but it was worth every single penny.
I love that. And how many people came?
I'd say 40.
That works,
But-
man.
Yeah, but I invited more. It was the middle of the summer. It was August. So a lot of people couldn't come, but still they got the follow-up pictures. They got, all the, posts that went along with it. So they heard a lot from me in that time. And it's still, I invited again, all of my referral partners as well and people. So even if they couldn't come, they got the invitation.
Yeah, and what Christine just said is crazy important, guys, because you can't judge the events that you have by the number of people who actually show up, because that's like just the icing on the cake. If people actually come and then have a conversation with you and have a good time, that's a bonus. The whole idea of hosting the event is about the invitation, the follow-up, the outreach, people feeling included, and then the follow-up of, gee, so sorry we didn't see you. Right? If you create a really good fear of missing out on the other end, I guarantee you the next time you have an event, your attendance numbers will go up. That's all. That's just about making sure that people recognize what they missed. Who else are doing events? Because how many of you were on Len Schwartz's session a couple of weeks ago? Right? That was a great session, and Len talked all about the events that he's been doing of late. Same kind of idea of what Christine just put on, having an ice cream social. Right? Kimberly did one as well. She sat in front of Dairy Queen for 2 hours. She invited everybody in her database to Dairy Queen. She sat in front of Dairy Queen for 2 hours, bought people ice cream who came, had conversations. I think she had about 40 people come to that. Len did a pizza thing and an ice cream thing. For those of you who look at those events and say, you know what, that just doesn't seem, I don't know, that's not really me. You're missing out on an enormous opportunity to really love on your database. Where's Ben Boger? Ben, you still have that food truck? Set up the food truck in your front yard, invite your whole database to come by for a hamburger.
I think I'm gonna do that. Yes.
See that? And for the rest of you who don't own a food truck, Ben does. So call Ben and have him come and park it in your front yard and buy everybody a hamburger through Ben's food truck. Simple, right? It's a simple opportunity to love on people. And if 10 people come, who cares? It's 10 more people that you had contact with. Again, don't make it hard. Don't make it hard. Hey Ben, do me a favor, put your cell phone in the chat, because I'm selling your food truck now.
All right.
Whether you wanted me to or not, cat's already out of the bed. Sorry, my friend.
Yeah, I'll DM you.
So the reality of and if it's not Ben, we know people who have ice cream trucks. If you don't want burgers, do ice cream. We know people who bring brick ovens to your driveway, right? And do pizza, that kind of thing. But those are things that are simple and they don't cost a whole lot of money. It's like an instant pop-up event. What else? What else are you doing for your databases to make sure that they remember you and pass you referrals?
Rick?
Yes, Marvin.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned a food truck, because I had somebody that closed in a community that I'm trying to dominate. And so anyway, I asked them, would you like to meet your neighbors? We'll do a hot dog and hamburger. I'll send out all the invites. So anyway, we're going to be doing that in another couple weeks.
I love that. Did you sell that person that house?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so what a great idea. So what Marvin's saying is he's actually throwing the housewarming party in effect, right, for the person he sold the house to have them be able to meet the neighbors. But when they meet the neighbors, what does he get to do? He gets to meet all the neighbors as well, right? And even better, he sold those people the house, so he gets to meet all the neighbors, and the people he sold the house to gets to tell all the neighbors how awesome he is. Brilliant idea. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, where else are you searching for listings?
Rick,
Yes.
it's Diane.
Hello.
So I'm just starting this effort, but I'm working to become a member on the board of the New Milford Dog Park. And I know that the one person is not feeling well and she's going to be stepping down. And we're having a Halloween event on October 30th. So, you know, hopefully I'll get on the board and I'll be able to, you know, thank people for coming and so forth like that. But maybe I may have a food truck, you know, there on the side. Except dogs do like hot dogs. But anyway, so that's my strategy. You know, it's just getting started now, and you know, I've already made a poster for the event. And do you have any other ideas how I can tap into that?
Well, here's what I would advise. I would advise if you have a group, right? If you're in a networking opportunity or you're looking to be on the board of something that's important to you, whether that be a church or something to do with your kids or your pets or whatever that thing is that you enjoy, even if there's not a spot to get on the board, right? What if you just went to that organization and said, hey, you know what? I would love to to sponsor a fundraiser for our organization. I would love to do a meet and greet for our organization. And then just do what we've been talking about. Like be this, because it's the way that you can show up as your business self. My biggest concern when people tell me that they're stepping into sort of a role and are going to use it for business purposes is that sometimes the role that you assume is being assumed by you as you, right? Not you as realtor you. And so you have to find a way to blend the two together, or else you're just relying on time and your ability to remind people of what you do to be able to receive business and referrals from that opportunity. So I kind of like the idea of use your personal influence wherever and show up as business person you, so that you can shamelessly plug it, shamelessly brand it, because you're sponsoring something and bringing an opportunity to that group, but it's not you personally, it's you branded, it's you, the real estate side of you, bringing that opportunity to that organization. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's just a differentiation, or else it's like going to your kids, you know, soccer game, and when you're at the kids' soccer game, regardless of how many times you wear a baseball cap with real estate on it or a T-shirt that says, you know, your real estate name or whatnot, people see you as little Jimmy's mom or little Jimmy's dad at the soccer game. Except if you go to the coaches and say, hey, you know what, my business would like to sponsor the party for after the last game. And now you get to bring your business self, hand out business stuff, and again, shamelessly talk about the business, because the business is who's feeding the kids that day. So you've earned it then. Yes, Ben.
For a full-time agent just starting out, like what would you recommend as a typical, you know, yearly marketing budget for doing events and these type of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. Generally speaking, what I would say is look at what you earned last year and make it 10%. If you have 10% as a budget for events for this year based on what you earned last year, that's a good place to start. And see how far you can stretch that. A lot of the things that we're talking about don't cost a lot of money. And as a matter of fact, what I would encourage you to do is don't do things that cost a lot of money. Do things where you invite a ton of people and you only pay for the people who actually show up. Right? Instead of creating some version of I'm renting a room. Like that's the problem with renting a movie theater. Right. And today I can see a couple of other issues where renting a movie theater may not be the best path, at least for the next few months. Right. But the problem with renting a movie theater is if 3 people show up, well, you've rented the whole movie theater. When you decide to have an ice cream social, if 3 people show up and you're doing the ice cream social at some place that makes the ice cream, well, you're only paying for 3 people's ice cream. Right. So I would say 10%, Ben, and then look and see how much you were able to do. Were you able to do an event a quarter? Work into your loyalty program. And if 10% allowed you to do an event a quarter and you wanted to do it every other month, well, then up it to 15% next year. But start with 10% and see where that brings you.
Thanks.
Sure thing. Joanne asked, do you need permissions to do events in parks? Joanne, that's a good question. And I think the answer is it depends on the park. So I would just, if it's a public park, there may be a permit you need to have if it's a business event. So I would just call the municipality that park is located in and ask that question. My guess is that it's different depending on the town or city that you're looking to hold it in.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's Cal.
Yes.
What if you arrange some kind of meeting through your temple, your church, where they have events going on, and you want to talk about, you have somebody come in from a mortgage company, or you have you, for example, come in and talk about real estate and what's happening in that community.
I love that idea. Right. It's a great idea. Right. Karen is all over jumping on with you, Cal. She will be your mortgage voice. And as someone who has run events
I will.
for
Thanks, Karen.
many years with Karen, she's great at it. She's great at it. She knows she gets right to the point. She knows exactly what people
Really?
are thinking and answers those questions. So she is definitely a benefit to any of those kinds of things. But I love that idea, Cal. It's offering an opportunity for you to showcase your own expertise and be helpful to a certain group of people. Make it a hey, do you have questions about the crazy real estate market evening, right? Because everyone has questions about real estate. I absolutely love that. What else?
Rick, have you ever used any of those gift services where they send gifts to clients like 4 times a year? Has anybody ever used those types of services? Where they automatically send gifts out to a list of people that you provide to them?
Yeah, it looks like Marvin has. What were your thoughts on that, Marvin? Did it work well? Did you?
Yeah, I think it's called personal marketing. Over 5 years, they send out, it cost, they just had a special from Mega Camp that it was 5 for $99, and they'll send them out stuff over the course of 5 years. And I mean, I think it's great. I signed up for like 20 people that closed recently. So, and people like it.
Yeah, what's so awesome about it is that it's a set it and forget it, right, Marvin? Because you buy it once, you sign the person up, and you don't have to think about it again, right? Yeah, so it's not reliant on you, right? We had some of this conversation yesterday, and I'll circle back to it. Start to really separate out in your business what you are in charge of and what somebody else should be in charge of. Now, that doesn't mean you have to run out and hire a full-time assistant, right? Leverage comes in a lot of different packages. Marvin just gave us a package. Karen just put a package on the table that what they just talked about. That's a version of leverage because you leverage your money to buy you back time. You write a check so that those people are followed up with, so that you don't have to remember to do that. Now, I would encourage you to work that program into a larger program so that the things that are free to do, like social media, connections and building relationships online, and making a phone call or shooting a text for coffees, right? All that stuff we talked about already is worked into that. But imagine the powerful program if something is sent quarterly to those people or twice a year, whatever it is, in between you reaching out and asking for coffee, in between you sending a postcard about reminder about the fireworks that year. I get asked a lot of times, what's the best way to create a consistent source of business, whether it be listing or buyers? And my answer is, it's not usually one thing. It's usually 3 or 4 things done consistently. Right? So what are those 3 or 4? Ben talked before about finding pillars, right? What are those 3 pillars? Right? A stool has 3 or 4 legs. Well, your business has the same 3 or 4 legs that without one of them, it wobbles. And without 2 of them, it falls down. And so what are those legs for you? What are the pillars of your business? And are you exercising each of those muscles? Yes, Marvin.
One thing that we're having pretty good success with lately is I have our assistant going through expireds at communities that I do business in, and she's going back. I have her going back to I think January of 2019, and she's just making sure they're still expired, and then we're sending them out a handwritten note. Excuse me, and we also we're sending out just listed and just sold postcards, which I know is kind of passe, but listing just went on the market today in Watertown for us for $530. That's from a postcard. So you know, I just do some old fashioned stuff, and a lot of it works.
Yeah, you know why? Because everything old is new again. Right? Because the reality is that there are some things that are just tried and true in our industry. And many of us are looking for the, again, I said this yesterday, I've spent 21 years looking for the magic bullet. It doesn't exist. I can absolutely tell you, I have spent 2 decades seeking it. It doesn't exist. What exists is smart activities done consistently. That's where success lies. And it doesn't matter what those activities are. That's kind of the cool thing. If your activities are consistency around events, guess what? Events will work. If your activities are consistency around postcard mailings and then follow up from those postcard mailings, guess what will work? Postcard mailings and follow up. If your consistent activities are texting for coffees into your database, guess what will work? Right? You just have to choose the consistency. That's where, as business people and frankly as humans, we struggle. Almost all of us. Right? We struggle with the consistency of it. It's the repetitious boredom, because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. But here's what's cool. When you do that and you get results, why wouldn't you just keep doing it? Gary said something to us on Thursday that I wrote down and will repeat to you. He said, if you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. You know, every once in a while when somebody says something and you think, oh my goodness, were they talking directly to me? Like I wanted to turn my camera off. I was afraid people were looking at me. And I don't think I give up all that often. But there are a couple of things in my head that he hit where I was just about to say, you know what, I'm tired of that. Let's do something completely different and new. Nope. If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. Just keep plugging away. Create the consistency and results will come. Hey, speaking of mega camp, anybody else have any other brilliances that they heard at mega camp they want to make sure that we share with each other? What else did you hear last week that you want to make sure gets out on the table? So not a very productive week last week, is that what I'm hearing?
Hi, going, Rick.
Yes, Stuart.
Come from the side of contribution.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you want to create consistency around anything, create consistency around that. How can you give? How can you give back? How can you help? Right, that goes back to what Cal asked before. How can the communities that I'm a part of, whether they be large or small, how can I set something up that gives back to those communities and is still a benefit for my business? It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? It can be both. Legitimately, it can be both. And there's nothing wrong with that. Donna.
So the major takeaway for me last week, and it was after Gary had done the stats and he was talking with Jason and Jay Papasan, and it was Jason that actually said in response, he said, this is a great moment for you to be a fiduciary, which is another way of saying the economist of choice. And yet the twist is, you know, bringing them the information they need, helping them, what you say all the time, Rick, and Ignite, the realtor's job is to bring them the facts and help them interpret them. To be that person, regardless of, you know, what the situation is, to make sure they have the facts, help them interpret them, because other people are just not doing that. And this is it's a confusing and crazy market that is unlike any other, and they need us to bring that information and clarity.
You know, and following Don, yes, thank you for putting that out there, Donna, because it's so crazy important, right? And what naturally flows from what you just said is, when was the last time you reached out and made care calls to your entire database? Right? A care call isn't something that, like, some major event doesn't have to happen to make a care call. Guess what? In case you hadn't noticed, there's still a major event happening. So if you're looking for a major event, you found it. Reach out. How's it going? How's the summer? How you been? I want you to recognize that what Donna just regurgitated from what Gary and Jason were talking about last week has everything to do with you being a valuable resource, not just for real estate related things, but a valuable resource to the community that you choose to surround yourself with, otherwise known as your database, right? Because that's just the community that you choose to surround yourself with, is what your database is made of for the most part. And so what does that look like? Do you know current stats in real estate that you're sharing? Are you asking people in your database, hey, what's your magic number that if your house starts to get to X, that you and I should be talking because it's time to put it on the market? Right? I gave you numbers this morning. Some of those numbers, right? Is Debbie Orr on the call today? She's not, but I can tell you that Debbie just decided to put her house on the market years earlier than she thought she was going to, and make some changes. She's moved into one of her investment properties and bought another investment property out in Ohio. But she sold her house that she raised her children in, you know, for 40 years. Why?
Twenty
Because
percent
she-
gain in a year.
Right. She knew the numbers and it knew it made sense now.
And you know what? That turned into $100,000 extra in her pocket. She sold her house for $100,000 more than she had any right to sell it for. So, okay, are you being that resource with each of the people in your community? Are you having those conversations? Hey, Donna, it's Rick Scott. I just wanted to reach out and see how things were going. We have a little chat. Hey, you know, before I let you go, I'm certain that you've heard just how crazy the real estate market is. It feels like I would be remiss in not asking you the question, what's that magic number for you and your property? Simply because I want to put that in my notes. And if I start to see property values in your community approaching your magic number, would it be okay if I gave you a call to say, hey, guess what? Donna's going to say, oh, you know what? You would do that for me? You would monitor my house values for me? I'm your realtor, right? What else am I supposed to be doing? And I think that was Jason's main point, is if you can be that person and they know that you're that person for everybody in your database, you can't keep up with the amount of business that will come from that. You can't keep up with it. Love that. Thank you for putting that out there, Donna, because that's a real winner. That is a real winner. And it's a simple phone call to make, guys. If you're curious about what you're going to talk about with at your coffees, talk about that. Right? Do your texting for your coffees, set up your coffee meetings, and then talk about that. Go ahead, Lori.
I always try and get our mortgage partners involved in any of my deals. So I had a client recently that came with a Bank of America pre-approval. So I said, would you call my mortgage person? So she did. She's like, do I have to? Like, I said, no. Well, I think it's always good to get a second opinion on anything. So she called Bill, and the next text I get is, he's a genius. So basically, he said, let's refinance your house that you completely own and pull the money out. So when we go to do investment properties, we're making cash offers. And so it's benefiting me, it's benefiting my client. It's a win-win. And, she's used other realtors in town, but she's like, we're with you, so I got loyalty out of it too.
There you go. I love that. You know what, that must be a Westport Mortgage like office meeting that they talk about, and because Karen made me do the same thing. And guess what? It works, right? It works. And so what's cool is, oh yeah, Donna just put it in the chat, right? What's cool is when the partners you bring to the table look like geniuses, you then get the credit for the same level of genius, right? Which is awesome. Frankly, guys, it's why we're in business with the people we're in business with. Our partners weren't just like chosen because they happened to be walking by when we needed a mortgage partner, right? Our mortgage partners were chosen because we kind of think and build businesses the same way. They're vetted. They know how to talk to your clients, right? I wouldn't trust just anybody to talk with my clients, because God knows what they might say. I trust the people we're in business with, and that's why we're in business with them. They put you first, and they put the client first, and you in the middle of that idea and them and the client, so that you're not excluded. Another great suggestion from Lori is that you utilize, whether it's mortgage or insurance or whomever we happen to be partnered with, partner with one of them to see what the opportunities are out there. Right? Interest rates are still ridiculously low. What if you texted for coffees and your coffee conversation with your database was, hey, you know what? Have you thought about refinancing? Because we have some internal mortgage folks who are doing like miracles to get people mortgage payments that they never thought they would ever see ever again. You should like have a conversation, talk to Karen, talk to Bill, and use those as an opportunity again. Do you see how it's offering, it's coming from contribution, it's making sure that they get what they want and need, but they're hanging that on the hook of you. Make sense? Great suggestion. What else? What else are you doing out there to win business? What else did you hear last week that you want to make sure that we talk about?
Rick, can you talk some about the latest trends and what's working via video, text, social media marketing, that because everybody could say social media is part of my marketing, but you're just a fish in a huge ocean in the social media land. So what's working right now as far as that goes.
Yeah, so from a social media perspective, what I would offer is it's kind of the same conversations. It's how are you creating community inside of social media. I was in one session at MegaCamp, and by the way, for those of you who attended MegaCamp, remember you have 60 days to access all of that recorded, everything that you didn't attend, anything that you didn't choose. All those other sessions are recorded and they're in the video library in that portal, and you have access to that for 60 whole days. So if you were either had to miss a day or you had to make some choices in the afternoons about which panel you went to, go back and watch some of the other ones. There's one on online leads, Ben, I think that I've heard that was really kind of awesome. And they talked about Facebook groups, right? They talked about the idea of if you're working social media, well, what if you started your own Facebook group? So again, it's the idea of building community. It's not just friending people and clicking the like button, right? It's deeper than that. If you really want to foster community and build relationships, it's more than just like button and some comments. It's about maybe taking some stuff offline to say, hey, I couldn't help but notice that you did this, that, and the other thing. How's that going? How can I help? I have a suggestion. I just took my kid to college for the first time last year. I see that you're getting ready to do that. If you have any issues or have any questions about things they might need, please reach out. Right? That's that next layer of all of that. And the idea of Facebook groups to build community. I know some of you have Facebook groups, so you're probably better equipped to talk about Facebook groups than I am. But the room that I was in focused on, it's not just about social media or Facebook. It's about certain aspects of how you use social media and building and growing Facebook groups to build communities that you then have influence over. Was a big part of that conversation. Anybody run Facebook groups? I know a bunch of you do. Anybody run Facebook groups that you want to just kind of unmute and say they're awesome and here's why?
I do. I've got a couple of them. I have one that's Westport. It's Weston and Westport Local Life. I started during COVID, and it started off just being supporting the local businesses and telling people what's open, what's not, delivery times and things like that. And then it kind of morphed into what's going on this weekend in Westport and Weston. And I have my assistant post every single day on it. And then in the afternoon, I comment on the post and reach out to people who have, posted also, because I let anybody post on it who's from Weston or Westport. But it's been really great. It's the community really seems to like it.
Love it. Right. And so what did you hear what Christine said? Then I kind of take it offline. I start having people post, and then I answer the posts, maybe something simple in the actual group, but she's taking those conversations offline to dive deeper into that with those specific people. I love that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mara.
Yes, I have a Facebook group, and I have actually 2,000 people, which I just started it a few months ago when I joined Keller Williams, probably 3 months in. And with it, I ask membership questions before they join the group. Well, I will get their email address, I will get where they live, and I will get their phone number so I can reach out to them. And now my group, and you build trust with all of these people, so they start to really trust you. I didn't even mention I was a real estate agent in the beginning, but now everybody knows that I am. And now we're starting to do hiking groups and all different kinds. So I can get together with these people and I can meet them in person and talk all about real estate and just build their trust.
I love that.
And it's growing every day. People invite more people every single day. So it's a lot of work because I'm always on there, but hopefully one day it's going to really pay off. So.
Well, and you know what? Thank you for saying that, because what Christine and Mara are talking about is not something casual, right? It's very much on purpose. they've started these groups, they feed these groups, they monitor these groups, they facilitate things going on in these groups. Guys, guess what? The harder you work, the luckier you seem to be. Right? So it's not just about waking up and saying, oh, I opened my own Facebook group, where's all the listings? It's work, it's every day. And if your choice is to go that path, remember, there are some people who do open houses 4 and 5 times a weekend, and that's their path. There are other people who are constantly on the phone, dialing for dollars. That's their path. If these social media groups are part of your path, recognize that it's not casual. Any of this stuff that we're talking about, if you want the results that some of your colleagues are getting from these sources, from these activities, you need to recognize it's work and it's time. Yes, ma'am.
So I just, thank you for saying that, luck is, yeah, exactly what you said. But what Christine also was saying is that she has a system and she has a plan and she has leverage to make sure that it all keeps running. It isn't casual at all. It's an on-purpose plan. It's a strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I heard was like there's a certain time of day that something actually gets done, and that's every day. And sometimes it's me and sometimes it's my assistant, and this is all how it works, right? That is strategic. It's not casual. I love that.
Yeah, I actually schedule posts if I know I'm not going to be around. If I don't have time to do it during the day, there's a way to schedule your posts so they come out at the right time.
So you know what I equate it to, and this may sound dopey to some of you, but it's what pops into my mind, right? So what Steve and I do on the weekends is we cook lunch for the whole week, right? Part of our Sunday is cooking, 4 jillion things of chicken cutlets and peppers and onions and like all the things that we utilize for our lunches, because it just creates a system in the mornings of take a piece of chicken, scoop the peppers and onions in, put it in a thing, and you're done. You don't have to think about it. So it's pre-scheduling posts. When Mara said that, that's where I went, right? It's the same idea. And this way, we don't have to worry about the lunches. We don't have to worry about being tempted to eat crappy food because we already have our own food prepared. We don't have to spend money on buying lunch every day, right? There's a whole lot of benefits to having a system in place for the things that are important to you, whether it's chicken for lunch or pre-scheduling posts or having some kind of a schedule to any of these lead generation and lead conversion ideas. Here's what I can tell you. It's kind of the key to life. Pre-thinking, pre-scheduling, understanding that a system is required if you do it more than once, and knowing that sometimes using your money to pay for some leverage to get some of those things done allows you to focus on either living your life or growing your business or both, right? Depending on what you're leveraging. It is the secret. All right, we have like 1 minute left. Yes, Joanne.
Mega camp last week. One of the things I really liked is the 5-star service. Put that in people's heads and build towards getting that 5-star, because that's really what everything is about these days.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And making it all about service, and then making it the follow-up, I think, to that though, is make sure it's about service, and then make sure you get people to talk about your service. I heard some idea that somebody, instead of pushing out a review link like right after the closing, they wait a certain period. Oh, it's 30 days. They wait a month, and 30 days later, they have a candle delivered to the homeowner who bought the property, right? The client, or have it delivered to the seller who moved away. And the candle has a sticker on it that says, "Thank you so much for your trust," with a QR code, with a note that says, "Please use the QR code to fill out our review." And the reason they wait a month is because what they find is if someone's in the middle of a move, like how many people like moved into some place years ago and still have boxes they haven't unpacked, right? Imagine what those first couple of days are, what the first couple of weeks are. And so when we insert ourselves and say, please give us a review, it sometimes gets lost. So I loved that idea of come 3 or 4 weeks later, give them a gift, make the gift have some kind of a QR code on it so that you have a link, something that they can just do simply. It goes right on their phone, bam, they do the review and you're done. But the idea is 5-star service. And then the follow-up to that is make sure they're talking about your 5-star service. Make sense? So let me leave you with this, if you'll give me 2.5 more minutes. One of the best things I heard Gary say last week was, he said, people always ask me, that old adage of how do you eat an elephant? And of course, the answer is one bite at a time. And Gary took that one step further and said, people ask me about, like, okay, if I'm eating the elephant and it's one bite at a time, that's great, but where do I start? Right? Do I start eating at the trunk or the tail or the hoof or where do I start? And his comment was, I thought, kind of brilliant. He said, well, let me ask you this. Are you eating the whole elephant? If you are, who cares where you start? Just start. Just start doing. It's not relevant where you start if you're eating the whole elephant anyway. So choose a bite and just get started. And for those of you who listen to a lot of these conversations and say, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm nowhere, right? I feel like there's 9,000 things I have to do to take those next steps. Distill it down to, that's the whole elephant. What you heard today is the whole elephant. And you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And as long as you're going to eat the whole thing, it doesn't matter where you start. So just pick one of the things that we talked about today and get it going. And then once it's going, circle back around and start something else. Make sense? All right, guys. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for all those great ideas. I took a lot of great notes. Thank you for your time and your talents. I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Bye.
Thank you.